MARTA is a transit system with lots of history. In 1965, the Georgia General Assembly voted to create MARTA to replace the privately operated bus companies that were going out of business. Ever since its conception, however, it was not funded very well. Originally, it was not funded at all because the five core counties of DeKalb, Fulton, Gwinnett, Clayton, and Cobb all rejected a zero point 0.5 sales tax to operate bus services. Later on in 1971, the then mayor at the time, Sam Massel, went on a campaign and pulled an unusual stunt of pulling up in front of City Hall with a flatbed truck and bearing a hatchet to symbolize his thanks to state legislators. Moving on, he did manage to get legislative support for it, but he still had to get voters to approve it, so in true Mad Max fashion, he got in a helicopter and hovered over the downtown connection during rush hour and said, "If you want out of this mess, vote yes." I guess that's one way to get support. After voters approved the sales tax, the governor at the time, Lester Maddox, went to Senate and said he would block the sales tax if did not make it so 50% of the sales tax had to go to operating costs. This means anytime operating costs more in a year, MARTA would have to raise fares, leading to today's $2.50 fare, which is the highest in the country. And throughout MARTA's history, the counties of Gwinnett and Cobb have all rejected MARTA service, which has stopped any sort of rail extension into those areas. And much of this rejection of service into these counties has to do with segregation and redlining because at the time, MARTA went to poor areas, and many of the rich white suburbanites all rejected MARTA in favor of having their own bus service for their own counties. You can easily see how much white suburbanites don't want this due to racial reasons in this clip.
This is what the transit tax will do. It will further urbanize the county. It will create a demographic tsunami in Cobb County to the point where we will never, ever, as a Republican Party, ever be able to recapture the majority on the Board of Commissioners. We might lose the school board. We might lose statewide elections. So we might become DeKalb County. Is that a pleasant thought?
That clip shows exactly why MARTA could not expand into the suburbs, because rich, right suburbanites are afraid of urbanization, which is code for black people moving in. But one of MARTA's next failures has to do with income levels. After the fall of the streetcar, public transportation was seen as inferior to cars, which meant that service was cut back on buses. This also made buses a transit option only to be used by lower income people, and many rich people left into the suburbs away from the city of Atlanta to get away from black people and minorities. This practice is known as white flight, and it's happened all across the country. And this has extremely prohibited MARTA's expansion, as no upper class or even middle class take the service except for rare occasions. This does mean that the majority of the population does not care about what happens with public transit in their city, destroying support for MARTA. Many are opposed to public transit because of a car centric way of living that is the only way of life for many. Also, Atlanta's continuous urban sprawl makes it hard to build a serious rapid transit service. For example, businesses and transit stops both have the same principle. Each business needs a certain amount of people going there to function and not go bankrupt. If you build a business in a suburb, you will have to build a parking lot with a wide road to accommodate the people going there, because not many people live within walking distance of the store. Same thing with the transit stop. You would have to build a large parking lot for the train station. However, a large parking lot causes issues for the city because when you get another stop, you will not have a car ramp. You will be stuck in a sea of cars and you will have to charge through a parking lot just to reach a 5-lane stroad. Also, a train station is even worse than a business with this, because at least the business turns up parking spots every 30 minutes, while meanwhile a train station will have cars parked there all day. And MARTA especially is notorious for having a ton of parking rights which severely limit the system. The final problem with MARTA is leadership. MARTA's leadership has continuously squandered money that was supposed to be used on new projects. A good example of this was in 2016 when a halfpenny sales tax was approved and gave Marta approximately $2.5 billion to be used on capital investments. This means things like new transit lines and infrastructure that was supposed to be used for many new projects, such as the Clifton Corridor, which is an LRT line which would have gone between Avondale Station and Lindbergh Center Station, Clayton County BRT, which would have gone through Clayton County, the Greenbrier Mall BRT, which would have gone from Oakland Station to Greenbrier Mall. Finally, the line most people cared about to get done with the $2.5 billion, the entire Beltline rail line. Yes, the entire thing, the whole circle. Many don't actually know this, but the Beltline was originally supposed to be a rail line. However, that idea was given up. If you wonder what happened to this money, no one knows. Some say they spent it on improving service, and others say they spent it on paychecks and raises for higher ups. But after all this, what can we learn from Marta's stories and its failures? Well, number one, you can't build high capacity transit for spread out, low density areas. Number two, NIMBYs and racism are some of the biggest threats to transit. And number three, you can't build your transit agency to fail by limiting it with regulations. But just remember, after all this, Marta in Atlanta still has lots of potential. It is, after all, a powerhouse of money. But we need to make changes. So thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.